Security Halt podcast is proudly sponsored by Titan SARMs, Precision Wellness Group, and Pure Liberty Labs. Let's do it. Let's dive in. I always like to say it's a in-the-moment, authentic interview with two people. It's like we're having coffee, just virtually.
I got mine too.
Without further ado, Kathleen Flarity, welcome, Security Halt podcast. How are you today?
I'm so good, Denny. Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here and excited to talk to you today.
Yeah, it's truly remarkable to find somebody in the field. You work at one of our nation's finest facilities for brain health and recovery. And I am just thrilled to have you on here because our 10th group guys are right there in Colorado. And whenever somebody reaches out, like, hey, I think I may have TBI, and they're very, it's always, we minimize our experience, right? So guys are like, hey, I did 15 years, only 15 years, 5 combat deployments, but only 5 combat deployments. I was a master breacher. I fall down. I think I think you called it vestibular dysfunction. I can't remember things. I'm like, brother, you're like setting off alarm bells. Like you are 100% a candidate for Marker's Brain Institute. Like, please, you don't have to try to minimize your experience, but I'm so happy that whenever the 10th group guys reach out, they're right there. They can go there. And the other thing, not to be so braggadocious about this amazing guest, is you're a service member. You know what it's like to go this, and you've experienced this firsthand. So we can go on this conversation can go in so many different ways, but I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that, yeah, this is, for you guys listening at home or on your drive home, this is somebody who has lived the experience and is now at one of our nation's best places for your care. So that's why I brought her on. And if you want to go back to Broken Brains for her episode, please check it out after this. But without further ado, Kathleen, how are you?
Thanks, Denny. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to have this coffee with you this morning and talk about how we're going to make an impact and the world a better place because we have influence, no power, or authority, but we have influence. Yeah,
that's right. Often enough, from my lived experience, influence is good. It can get you a lot of places. It has certainly helped me in my career as a Green Beret, and it certainly has helped in this space because when we can talk about things, when we can normalize the idea of getting help and going to a place, it gives people the courage to step forward and say, you know what, I deserve to get help. I deserve to heal too.
yes. And that's interesting that you say that, Denny, because sometimes when our patients are here at the Marcus Institute for Brain Health, they don't think they've suffered enough. Somebody else needs that spot more than they do. And, that's something that we make clear that, you're here for a reason and we can help you and you deserve to be here. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's because we're so, people that choose to serve are so altruistic, right? They choose to put their lives on the help me out.
Lives on the line.
Lives on the line for, a cause, to have that purpose and meaning in their life to do something. And so somebody else needs it more is what they think, but that's not true.
I hear it all the time. And when I was still dealing with my thing, that's kept me from wanting to get help. Somebody else deserves it more.
Right.
And it's such a complicated thing. We tend to think, and these myths have been long propagated, that brain trauma only happens if you were in an explosion, an IED, a rollover, a big, massive event. And certainly that is where these things can happen. But that's not the only things that can cause it. But let's take a step back. Like, how'd you find yourself in this space?
That was serendipitous. And I think that, often, God presents a opportunity and a door, and you can choose to take it or not. And so a little bit about my history. So I'm the executive director of the Marcus Institute for Brain Health and then helped co-found the CU, University of Colorado Center for Combat Research with Dr. Vic Babarda. And because we, as a general officer and as a commander, I would also often look at how the research was done and how it added to the gaps, and it didn't. It often was research for research's sake. And then also it frustrated me when somebody would say, go do, and I'd want to look at the science and there's no science behind it. They just wanted to say we're doing something right. And so that was the impetus for getting that started. And it's been partnership with about 30% of our primary investigators are active duty. And we're really filling that gap. So because of the success of that, I was asked to take over the Marcus Institute for Brain Health. This was last February. And at the time, and I know you know this, Denny, but I had had a traumatic brain injury at the time. By what happens at the time, is labeled as mild, but, with I know it was moderate, and I'm still on that healing journey. And so when the chancellor asked me, I really didn't feel that I was capable, that that I really I was concerned, right? Because we know all the chinks in our armor and we don't share those. And so, but I thought, this is a one in a million opportunity to lead a purpose driven, that if anybody in the world will give me grace, it's the people I'm going to work with here because they understand it. And so even though I felt incompetent and incapable, and I was still so struggling with my own negative impacts, as you know, it's every aspect of your life, of daily living to relationships and all the way along that gamut. And but I thought I had something to give, and it really has been exactly where I'm supposed to be, exactly doing what I'm doing. So it has been a gift in many ways.
And what, if you don't mind me asking, what happened?
Yeah, the interesting thing is 41 years in the military, right? 23 years aeromedical evacuation, med medic to Air Force general, 2,800 jumps. And I get my traumatic brain injury from driving onto campus. Rain was pouring, the cars all stopped, and I give great following distance and was able to stop. And then a car behind me, reported by the state patrol to be traveling 65, 75 miles an hour, didn't stop. So full impact, crushed my car, crushed their car. And the unique thing about it is it popped my car up on its nose and then spun it around. So I have like a really unique twisting of both my brainstem and my brain in there. So like I have more generalized instead of one part injured. So here
Yeah.
I am on the journey, right? It's like everything, it's like the wellness practices or anything you're working through. It's a path to, it's a journey to recovery, and nothing happens fast enough for us, right? We want to be better today. We want all that back to, optimal brain peak performance today. And it's hard work. It's hard work.
Yes, yes, it is, and it's not like the one thing that's unique in this story that I'm just only now starting to understand as I'm learning and interviewing more people, the impact of your injury, being that jarring and rotation and impacting the brainstem.
Yep.
Something we only look at. It's funny when we see diagrams, when we're starting to piece things together and we want to get involved, we want to get a better understanding of our own health journey. We see all the diagrams and little short videos, and the impact's always just like, the frontal lobe, and we're like,
Yep.
oh yes,
How coop, trauma
that's
coop,
yeah,
that very
yeah,
traditional. Yeah.
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 That's not the only thing, guys. That's not the only thing that happens. You are a living, breathing human giant robot mesh suit that moves around, and that brain inside your skull is being impacted in different ways, and that brain stem is also very, very fragile. So like when you think in terms of the way you're jumping out of an airplane, the way you have a downwind landing that doesn't go right, and you're a free fall guy, and you hit and you scorpion, like your brain's impacted not just in the front where you're seeing the animation, and when
Absolutely.
you Google it, it's in so many different ways. And your recovery isn't we don't get the most groundbreaking truth trickle down to the front lines. I was still dealing with the idea of like, oh man, like I didn't have the protocols. I wasn't in a quiet room with the lights off. Like, oh man, like now we know that it's all about movement. It's all about,
Yeah.
nutrition plays a role in it. And now we
Mm.
know, more importantly, it's not just one thing. It's the repeated exposures. Like, how did you go about your healing journey, and where did you start? Were you able to rally around? Was your family able to rally around you, because you're a high achiever, and get you to slow down in order to like get those first few months of like care?
Yeah, I mean, that's the hard piece, right? Because as a high performer, right, and so many with our military service members and veterans and first responders, that's what we see at the Marcus Institutes. They're so used to being such a high performer. So, like, even, and they call it the invisible wound because on the surface, you look fine. This conversation, if I didn't tell you, for an hour, I can be a high performer and you wouldn't even know. But for them to go from here to here, that distance is It's hard. And for me, I couldn't drive. My speech was very negatively affected, my word finding, my cognitive functioning from all levels, from memory to retention to being able to retrieve things. And it was hard because, one, as a general, you think I'd have beautiful VA care. I do not, as a retired general. And then for me, just finding like I call them a ringleader, somebody that really understands TBI that can get this integrated team, because one discipline is not going to do it. And I first started with a cognitive speech language pathologist who I could do this, you could do it for me, got a book out, and it was Ling Ling and the Lucky Cricket. I had to read this little paragraph. She went to another page and asked me questions. Well, I could even deductive reasoning, like, I'm like she goes, "What did it take place?" And I'm like, "I don't remember, but she had Chinese clothes on, so I'm assuming Chinese." So even our thinking impaired brain is, we're still trying to figure things out. And so it was really, really hard initially until I found a really good neurologist that brought in vision and neuro PT and all the right. And then I personally, within our network of traumatic brain injury clinics, there's 6 of us. And so I went to the Haley Brain Wellness Center in Jacksonville, Florida, where it is
Yes.
like, yeah, so
Yes.
it's amazing, right? And it's the same model as here. We were the first one to develop it, and then through the Avalon Action Alliance, there's 5 other TBI sites. And so I could get that eval. And the same thing that we do here. It's every single traumatic brain injury is different, every single
Hmm.
one. And one discipline will not fix it. So there's a psychological health issue. So it's physical, it's cognitive, it's emotional. As you say, body, mind, spirit, it's that whole piece. And if you did one unilaterally, you're not going to get better. And I am just impressed with neuroplasticity, neurogenesis. And so it's not a death sentence. Even like, if you have early cognitive decline and other things, there's things that you can do about it. And so for me, I am a fighter. I do still like so much work every single day. I do neurophysical therapy. I do some cognitive work. I do transcendental meditation, 20 minutes twice a day, because that is like non-sleep deep rest. It really brings like my cognitive load and my energy is gone because the
Yeah.
traumatic brain injury sucks 50% of your energy, physically, cognitive, emotionally. So if when you're used to working 18 hours or 16 hours a day and now you're down to 4, it feels so inadequate,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so it's a horrible place to be, but most days I'm still optimistically hopeful because I know I can do the work. I've had that training, I have that perseverance. I'm going to get after it. But some days it's one step forward and 2 steps back. But to be surrounding by this amazing integrated co-located team and watching them change lives and impact lives. So to have on one campus, the neurologist, the physical medicine and rehab doctor, neuropsychologist, neurophysical therapist, behavioral health. Although the 10 Special Forces group and the young active duty want to call them a brain wellness coach. They don't like the term behavioral health. And I'm like, yeah, sure, we can do that. And then like, we don't want it to be called yoga. I'm like, nope, still going to be called yoga, but we will call it brain wellness coach because it's really that whole person concept, right? You can't treat things in isolation. And then the other thing I learned well is because of my overstimulation, which is so bad. So, like to go to dinner, like something as simple as going to dinner, and everything's an event. Shopping's an event. Going out, in a loud crowd is the event. So I have to do a lot of prep to it. So I will have to do my transcendental meditation before I go. I have my yellow earplugs to decrease the stimulation, my noise canceling earplugs. I have Zofran, which is anti-nausea. I have anti-nausea pressure point beds. I used to sit with my back to the wall so I could see the door. Now I can't do that because that movement overstimulates me and I can't be present. So my head is so busy with all these competing because of my TBI or priorities, I can't be present with my spouse or somebody that I love. So now I will sit, making sure they have my 6. I will like you, I'll look at you so I can see the plain back wall behind you and not the movement or the noise. But one of the things I learned is systematic desensitization. If I just avoid it, which a lot of our service members do, right? Because that baseball game with your kids is too much, and the irritability, low frustration tolerance, the anger, which are, hallmark signs, not just for traumatic brain injuries, but also for PTS. And it's often interwoven, right? Because we know the TBI alone can cause anxiety, depression, because now, like, every aspect of my life is negative. Like, how could it not possibly affect that? But we're warriors, right? We do the hard work. We step up to the plate. And when you tell us what's wrong, like, here's your oculomotor, here's your vestibular, here's your cognitive. This is what you need to do with our team, with our help, with your family and support. This is how you can get better. And then we also bring in a lot of family. We give TBI 101s. The family can really understand what's going on, how they can help, how they can support. And so now my family will say, well, usually it's like, why don't you do a TM? Like as soon as I get home, the transcendental meditation,
Hmm.
because I'm exhausted, I'm depleted, and then I need to ration my energy, which is it's unheard of. Like that's not me. Been in the medical field now for 45 years, and before that I was still going. And I'm still going. I just have to reel myself in and really focus on my wellness practices.
Yeah, you've hit so many points, and I want to take it back for a second to that hope and resilience. One of the key things that we don't do a really good job of in this space when we're injured, when we're going through these, a lot of times when guys or gals are going through their healing journey, you can get overwhelmed with the diagnosis, with
Yeah.
the wording, the
Yep.
phrasing of things,
Yep.
and then you tell yourself this myth of like, okay, I'm Forrest Gump. I am not going to be
Yep.
the high achiever I was. I'm never going to get this back. And that word starts happening. And then you lose hope. You lose hope of getting back to the person you were, getting back to the person that could read books and could digest things. And let me tell
Scientific
you,
journals. Like
yeah,
that's yeah, I'm
yeah.
a scientist, so
I wasn't able to read a book and retain information, and I couldn't focus on. I had to literally highlight everything, all the things.
yep.
I If I
Little
needed
notes.
something, I had to print it out, sticky notes, all these things. I've read more scientific peer reviewed research now, both for school and for my own information, because I'm doing shows where I have to have this information.
Right.
And I've gone to still a student working on my master's, and the person I was when I was in the middle of my crisis
Right.
couldn't do any of this stuff.
Yeah.
And it was really easy for me to take ownership of this idea that I'm never going to do this. But then somebody offered me mindfulness, and I'll never forget it. I talk about this all the time. It was the Intrepid Spirit at Eglin Air Force Base. I forget the name of the doctor, but she told me, hey, we might not be able to do much for your chronic pain. We might not be able to help immediately with all the things that you're going through, but we have a mindfulness instructor and we might be able to get you in there and start working on mindfulness. And I was so rude and so arrogant. No, fuck that. I don't want mindfulness. I want you to do something for my pain, for
Fix
everything that I'm going through. How dare you offer me this stupid meditation? Flash forward 2 years from that day, and I was getting my certification in mindfulness, because sometimes what you need, and my first job out of the military was a mindfulness like practitioner, integrated
that
practitioner,
for you. Yeah.
like being able to teach and give it back, because I realized sometimes you have to stop, you have to reflect where you're at and just understand that, like, okay, I have to radically accept this. I have to sit here with this. I don't have to think about it every day. I have to acknowledge it and let it move. Just, it will dissipate. The pain you're going through, it will dissipate. But more importantly, what you're going through in this journey, you have to find hope. You have to find hope that you're going to get through this and you're going to be fine. Like regardless of what you're going through and every little step, whether you're sitting in your first appointment or your very last one, like you got to have hope. How did you find the ability to cultivate that hope and make it part of your day-to-day practice? And how was your mindfulness journey? How did that meditation start for you?
Yeah. Well, I love that for you, Denny, because at first you don't appreciate the value, right? And we're high ops tempo, so our brains are busy. So say sit for 20 minutes, it's like that's crazy. That's crazy talk right there. But I had a really hard deployment in 2011. I was the commander of the one right there, of in Bagram, Afghanistan, of the Air Medical Evacuation Squadron. So I was responsible for all the air medical evacuation teams and all the critical care transport teams, and I flew a lot of combat missions myself. And so as a leader, I noticed that I was having more symptoms, not just because of the, triple amputees and the things that I cared for, and I put 150% into anything that I do, but also because I watched my team suffered. So I actually started uh, spent time with a world-renowned traumatologist. So how do you work on that resiliency? How do you build it, especially in medics, right? So compassion fatigue is like PTSD
Hmm.
for healthcare professionals. The signs and symptoms are exactly the same. And initially, they used to say to have PTS, you had to experience it. Now, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, the newest one out, says by witnessing the pain and suffering of others, you can also get it. And so I started a intervention on called it passion and practice, because I think you need to apply all these things, not just professionally, but to personally.
This episode is brought to you by Pure Liberty Labs. Quality supplements designed to elevate your health and performance. Check out their full line of quality supplements, whether you're looking for whey protein, pre workout, creatine, or a super greens drink. Pure Liberty Labs has you covered. Use my code SecurityHalt10 at checkout today.
And so I had been doing my own personal wellness practices well before my traumatic brain injury. So I was lucky because I include my personal well-being in my definition of success. So if I do things that nourish me, I'm going to bring a better leader, partner, father. Oh, I'm not a father, but mother. There's that word fight. Mother, and all of those pieces, like, I'll bring a better version of me forward, and then communicating that to people I love. So a simple mindfulness technique, and I do group sessions with our patients that come through here, um, at the Marcus Institute for Brain Health, this intervention that I've taught to 35,000 people, and I've done 6 research studies on, so I know that it works. And one of them is the mindfulness that you talked about. So I give immediate actionable interventions, some that can take 2 to 3 seconds, some that take a little longer. But as you feel yourself upregulating, as you feel you're, reacting instead of responding, to do those in the moment meditations. And one that I use a lot is, I'm a professor in emergency medicine. When we see patients, we wash our hands before and after. So especially during COVID, I use that time because you're so busy to put in those minute meditations throughout the day. And so we'll just say I had a difficult inter- interaction with the patient. So I'm washing my hands in their room. I'm taking the breath work. And we know, scientifically grounded, evidence based, there's a lot of tools out there. I breathe in peace and I exhale calm. So I'm going from fight or flight or sympathetic dominance to parasympathetic dominance. I'm feeling, and usually if you do something audible or tactile, that helps. And so as I'm doing this deep breathing, I'm feeling the warmth of the water. I'm washing my hands. I'm feeling the sensation of the soap. I'm recognizing I did my best for that patient, and my best is good enough. Now, how wonderful for that next patient or that next interaction with somebody I care about to be downregulated instead of upregulated. And what we don't recognize is 20 to 30 times a day, people will get that biochemical surge of these epinephrine, norepinephrine, which is adrenaline. And that's our normal pace. And we're used to it. And so part of it is we are so hypervigilant all the time, we don't even know that we're walking around in this upregulated state. And that upregulated state is really the base of the brainstem. So the lower part of your brain on fire 24/7. And so, like, when I talk about my intervention, I've done it from small groups here, like our cohort of 9 to 2,000 people. And I can go across the crowd. How many people, from a show of hands, have difficulty sleeping, falling asleep, staying asleep, waking up early? This is not just a military audience. This is across America, and the rate, 95%. It's because cortisol starts really high in the morning, helps us wake up. We see the bright light, and it should slowly come down by the end of the day. 20 to 30 times we get surge with this cortisol. That's a stress hormone. That stays up for 12 hours. There's a reason. So, like, the minute meditations, all the things that we can do in the moment, And the more you do it, and I'm sure, Danny, you teach us a lot, the more you do that, when the world falls away and you're present, so, like, there's nobody in the world right now besides you and me, that being present just feels so good to both of us that we want more of it, right? And
Yeah.
how do you go after that? And so I was lucky that I had those practices before, and I'm just purposeful and intentional about making sure I take care of me. And so my personal well-being, is part of my success. And so I prioritize it. Yeah. So thank you for that question.
Yeah. It's important to change the culture and our view of this. Like, it's all tied into it. It's the idea that we have to be upregulated and like put ourselves into fight or flight because we think that's what gives us the best performance. Like,
Yeah.
that's not what's getting you into, like, we talk about flow state and guys
Right.
mix this up all the time. Like, yeah, man, I'm getting hyped up. If I want to do good for work, I'm going to get amped up like I would for a football game, like I would for a mission. I'm getting amped up. I'm like, well, that's not flow state, dog.
Yeah.
That's just you
Yeah.
trying to surge adrenaline to go
Right.
type some emails. Like,
Yeah.
that's not what you should be doing.
Absolutely. And one of the things we know through science, like I can take you and say, okay, Denny, give me something that amps you up. And it could be as something as simple as when somebody cuts me off in traffic. So somebody cuts you off in traffic. You are late coming to this podcast. You have this world renowned, not me, somebody else, world renowned expert waiting on you. You're late, right? And they cut you off in traffic. If you go to immediately to sympathetic dominance, which is the fight or flight, the part of your brain that controls emotional regulation, the part of your brain that is critical thinking, executive functioning, which we need if I go work in the emergency department or somebody in the calm state, finger on a trigger, all those pieces where you need the big picture, you need all parts of your brain. The parts of your brain that control speech and language, so Warnicke's and Broca's part of your brain, go out the window if we let ourselves amp up, right? If we're in the fight or flight, there's that nice bell curve of a little bit of, I'm going on this mission. It's good. I know I have the skills. I have that, but like continuing to go up where you don't. And I've had patients here that there's no place in the world, 100%, no place where they feel 100% safe. Not one place. And that is going to use up all their hormones, all the good things, because you have to have a place, whether it's at your home with the locks on the door and, guns, firearms underneath the beds or whatever it is. But there's some place that you can down regulate and just be down regulated. But I will work, and this is not just in medical because I do EMS and I do fire and I do a lot of other where they don't feel safe ever. And that is gonna use up everything. And you think of all the good things that you need for a good life.
Yeah.
So meditation can do that, and mindfulness can do that. Walking mindfulness, just being present with the breeze and the trees and the light and the noise and how it feels on your skin. It doesn't take, hours a day. It just takes those minute mindfulness and yeah. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's important. The other thing that we have to talk about more is the successful approach to treating these injuries. When I was a young paratrooper and had concussions, the first thing that your first line of defense is your platoon medic.
yeah,
So the first thing they're going to tell you is just take a knee, drink water, you're fine. So it's right off the bat, like, okay, that young medic probably isn't going to give you the best guidance. But then say you make it into the TMC, the troop medical clinic, and you see a doctor. That's a PA. At the highest, you'll get the PA, and he'll oftentimes tells you, all right, here's a 48-hour stay in your barracks room. You'll be fine. As we move on in our career, if you do actually get in front of a doctor, they might send you to one specialty, one specialist, and then you go see that doc and that provider. And then you'll go back a couple weeks later. Maybe you'll get a referral to another doctor. But then at some point, the patient, the service member gets frustrated and stops seeking care because the number one thing that he wants help for might be migraines now. He's
right.
getting a lot of issues with his vestibular balance issues, but it's always one provider, one appointment. The clinics that are having the best success is when they treat the patient, the service member, as the primary mission, and you have a holistic care approach from a whole different point of attacks, different providers that all of them are looking at the service member as the main priority, the
Yeah.
main mission. Let's talk about how you guys at Marcus Brain Institute are bringing individuals to treat the patient from multiple approaches.
Yeah. Well, and I really think it needs to be that. And so often it's misdiagnosed. And the Joe Public healthcare provider out there does not understand the complexity of traumatic brain injury. And that, like, even to get, like, as if you see somebody, so what do you do for a living? Right. And so even by MOS alone, I know, that those low level cumulative blast injuries and the repetitive blast injuries, even if I know what they do, those questions are never asked. And so one of the things that we do uniquely is you don't have to have that one big TBI. By virtue of your job, we know you are exposed to, these different things. And so through philanthropic, so I do fundraising, philanthropic support, we fly out military. So we take active duty service members, we take veterans, and we take first responders. And we fly them to Denver, the university campus. We pay for their flights, we pay for their lodging, we buy protective and rich foods that we put in the house and they cook together. And so they get this amazing integrated, co-located TBI specialists. So all of those disciplines that I talked about before. So when the patient comes in, they only have to tell their story once. And they have
Mm,
what we call fishbowl. So they tell their story to all these providers. And we've looked at their charts, we've interviewed them. We already know that we believe we can help them based and they've had their traumatic brain injury. And then we will design an individual plan of care for them. First, we'll evaluate them and say, yes, here's where your areas of growth are. And then we have a 3-week intensive outpatient program where they stay with us for 3 weeks and it's very agile. So, and it's all those disciplines working together and it can be a co-treat. So you might be on this machine that's moving and is challenging your vestibular, but then you have a cognitive speech language pathologist asking you questions, making you do things, making you think because you can walk, but you can't walk, talk, and communicate, all of that at the same time. Because your brain injury is just like, okay, where do my feet go? Where do, and then they compensate. So I love having this. So we designed a special 2-week program that we call, since I've been here, it's called the Battle Program. So it's brain assessment and treatment tailored for lifelong excellence because I just don't want to just help them right here. I want them to understand what they need on this trajectory to not get dementia, Alzheimer's, CTE. How can you know, do the things in your life that you love, but how can you mitigate it and prevent? And I'm going to go out just on a little tangent, but we can't do that in a silo. That's the partnerships that you have with the people that you have, and Bruce Parkman and Paul Scanlon and everybody in that realm, General Fenton, people who are interested in this realm, and it's multifaceted. You need the research, you need the treatment, you need all these things. You need policy to change, reimbursement to change, the focus, the education. So it's multifaceted. But back to treating the patients here. We have this streamlined, compassionate journey from when they come from intake to discharge. And one of the things we do, we have all those validated tools, but I think as a patient, one of the most important thing is what was my patient-centered goal? My patient-centered goal to somebody who's had a TBI will understand it well. To somebody who hasn't is I want to go to the grocery store without it being a big event. I don't want it to take all my cognitive, physical, emotional load just from the overstimulation and have to rest before and after, right?
yeah.
And so we do the validated tests are great. That tells us we helped them, they got better, they started this trajectory. And as you said, they got hope. One, they know it's wrong. So it's not just this, well, you'll be fine or you got to live with it. But like you got the hope and we have a plan. We have a path on how to heal. So it's
Yeah.
huge.
That's it. That's one of the things that a lot of us don't get when we don't get access to a treatment center with multiple integrative
Yeah.
practitioners, multiple modalities.
Yeah.
They're just aimed just at you. And
Right.
that's a frustration I hear from a lot of guys. Like, yeah, I went to the TMC and they said I was fine. It's like, dude, you're not fine. The
Yeah.
TMC has a PA. And yes, the PA is great for, helping you with a lot of things. But when it comes to comprehensive care for your brain, And for concussions and repeated head injuries or head impacts, like they're not the best. We got to get you to a higher level of care.
Absolutely, and no disservice to them. I mean, like, I worked, emergency medicine for a long time, and I know I didn't treat them well. Like, knowing what I know now, looking back at early in my career, and, we've learned a lot. But, like,
Hmm.
it's, "Yeah, you got a concussion, go see your primary care provider, and, we expect it's gonna be better, in a couple weeks." And that's the whole everybody thinks exactly that. And also, like, some of those, primary care providers, every 15 minutes, they have to see someone. I can't even get a good history. Like, we take hours to get a good history here. So really, we're not, and again, not intentional. They just don't have the time or the expertise to dive into, the symptomology and knowing how to treat it or what disciplines you need. Yeah, to get 32 hours of treatment in 1 week. Like, I just remember early on, like, one, I had to have somebody drive me to my appointment, right? And so it took a whole day just for this one appointment. So I might have, this doctor, this concussion clinic, and this speech. None of them talk to each other. So if I got really nauseated and threw up in PT, but this team, our patients would say, "You guys are talking to each other," and they're like, "You're talking to each other." So they know that I pushed myself to one of the things we do as military members is we push ourselves too much. And what I've learned is I can't do that because if I push myself too much, I might lose 12 hours then because I have to rest. So, just like push it enough, get my nausea to 9, but not throwing up, and then let it back down. And then you do those, the things that we teach, those wellness things of how to down regulate, take that rest, and then let's get after the next thing because we want to get better.
Yeah. This episode is also brought to you by Precision Wellness Group. Getting your hormones optimized shouldn't be a difficult task, and Dr. Taylor Bosley has changed the game. Head on over to precisionwellnessgroup.com, enroll, and become a patient today. Yeah, I do want to touch in on something that's now at the forefront of my mind, trying to advocate and talk to guys, and that's repeated blast exposure. It's at first a lot of guys were hesitant to feel like, come on, dude, like part of the job, like there's nothing wrong with me. I'm like, dude, like it is a serious issue, it is a serious threat, and that's where a lot of people are finally coming to understand. Like this is the reason for my issues. This right
Yes.
here, like you can't just because you can't see the blast wave doesn't mean it's not impacting you. How are you guys treating it, and what are you seeing in the front lines, so to speak?
I have a special interest in research in that realm for both low level and the repetitive blast injury. And so we are doing different studies looking at that. And one of my combat scholar, Corey McAvoy, who was a 18 Delta, and to be a scholar, it's unpaid. You work a lot, but you get a lot out of it. He was really interested in that and did one of the really early studies on it and looking at the different positions of the breacher. So we have more science coming forward. But also, if you think about, and I think about this a lot because every brain injury is different, but like, how can we mitigate and protect? Because even like if you watch some of the old videos of the mortarmen, right, that
Hmm.
get their head in a certain position, right? Well, some of them they'd get their brainstem, with the blast. And so that's why they're all different. And our numbers, that 4 PSI is such a low number. I mean, even for me as a medic of what I've shot and fired, right, is a low number. So we need more studies, and I have several studies that I have colleagues that are working on in the mice model. And so, like, one through Corey McAvoy and James Meeburn in University of Washington and the VA out there is looking at what does that low level look like in mice, and then they're doing 6 months out. So not just immediately, but if you're having symptoms, like in the past, that was just part of it. You feel that percussion, you're like, "Oh, this is really," and it's like, so I think from the commanders, like, not we don't have to fire every round. I didn't need 100 to figure out if I'm competent or not. So I think it's changing the culture on multiple levels. And I think it's figuring out exactly how in training, war's different, combat's different, but in training, how can we prevent and mitigate? And I think it takes the whole of community to get after that. And we bring in operators, right? And so for me, if you're going to do science, you got to bring in the people that are experiencing it too, and then the scientists. So for us, and it's very interesting because some of our in our battle program, they've never had that big TBI. Our first group was just the 75th Ranger Regiment mortarmen. And it's very interesting because their pattern of injury and their presentation is different than that one big, and they're small sample sizes, right? So but it's still that anecdotal that it seems like the injury is more generalized, kind of like mine. It's not just this one part where I got hit or this one coop counter coop, but that whole more generalized symptoms. There's still things that you can do about it. And I think we individually and collectively need to make it better understood. And so I know you're probably going to Bruce Parkman's second annual Brain Summit in Florida, but to bring those experts together and really figure out what's the gap in science, how can we fill it quickly, not 17 years, and what's our best science now so we can start doing things. It might not be perfect, but we know things enough now that we didn't know, you know, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, or even 5 years ago. Like in the last 2 years, we've learned more about repetitive blast injury, repetitive head injuries, that low level cumulative blast injury. But for people, if you're having symptoms, and I don't know if I have so many ideas too, and like the blast gauges that are out there. So in the emergency department, we have a dosimeter that went our radiation because we do a lot of x-rays with patients in the emergency department because they're so acutely ill or injured. So we're in there while we're doing all these x-rays. So, but I would monitor it. So I know there's a lot of blast gauges out there, and I've talked to nobody about this, Denny,
Yeah,
but what would it be like if you had a blast gauge that maybe like the old Miles gear, when it's green or yellow, red, you're pulled off? And then what's the
exactly.
protocol look like? And then I know like the 75th Ranger Regiment, one of the things they're looking at is if you get a concussion or if you're having symptoms, they have gotten a supplement package. So instead of saying to this, 21-year-old Ranger, go buy $200 worth of supplement, they're packaging it with their concussion or their symptoms and giving them those supplements that we know will help with brain health and decrease inflammation. So I think it has to be prevention, mitigating, science, and education holistically.
Yeah, absolutely. And the things there are things right now in our military culture that we can stop and save our service members' brains by not doing it anymore. One of the biggest issues that I always saw as a young service member in it was the amount of times you're on a range and there's nothing to do and you need to expend something, a munition. And then I saw it when I became a Green Beret.
Yep. Turn it back in. You fire whatever you got, you fire.
Exactly. You don't have to do this. You don't have to put people on the line just to shoot ammunition because guess what? Exposure isn't just, we're not talking about anti-tank munitions
Yeah.
as being the
All of it.
only thing. It's all of it. It's
Yep.
absolutely all of it. So if you're looking at it from the biggest munitions are the biggest threat, it's like, no, it's every munition. It's how you're going about training. And if you're thinking of putting somebody behind a machine gun to do a spendex, is what they used to call it. You're just expending munitions. Don't do that. It's exposure. It's blast exposure. Even at the lowest level, it matters. It does matter. You only have one brain. You only have one brain. So when you're thinking about whether it's more important to turn in that extra ammo or put guys on the line just to shoot nonstop for hours, remember what's more important: human beings, humans over brass. It's that simple. Don't do it. If we can change that culture, because I've heard millions of stories now from guys that were just like, yeah, we had pallets of AT4s and we were just sit there and we're told to shoot nonstop and until they were all gone. It's like, what the hell are we doing?
Well, and how to incentivize it, right? How to change that culture because like as a commander, maybe I get a special award because we got expert on all these things. We hit the bomb on target. We did all of that, but we did it with the least amount of ammo. How about that kind of competition, right? Because then you have the focus instead of like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm with you, Denny.
It's just simple things, just tiny little things we can do. And remember that sometimes we can simulate and prioritize just making sure people are proficient with the least amount of high level munitions. Like we
Yeah.
don't need to go out all
Yeah.
day to
Yeah.
get behind the 50 cal, and we don't need to spend an entire day on the mortar range going through thousands of rounds to ensure that our gun teams are trained. Like figure out what it means to be completely proficient on a task and not have the exposure. And I think guys like Todd Strader and what he's doing and his community that he's building to bring awareness, that's doing more because more and more that we talk about this from the guys are out now, it influences the current generation of
Absolutely.
young
Yeah.
leaders, and they'll say like, "Oh wow, I don't want my guys to suffer like all these other veterans are suffering. Maybe there's something to me making sure that I rotate guys off the gun line, that I put the right protective measures as a young NCO, as a young leader, like, and be willing to stand up for your guys. If you have somebody that's in a position of authority above you telling you that you have to do this, dig into the regulations. And here's the thing, we talk bad about the military, but I will tell you right now, if you look into the manuals for the Carl Gustav for AT4s, it'll tell you how many rounds by position you should be doing. If they're telling you to do anything more than that, dig into the FMs, dig into the manuals and say, hey, here's the data. 2 to 3 rounds standing, 2 kneeling, and so on and so on. Be willing to be able to do the research, find the information to protect yourself. Nobody else is going to do it.
Right. And that science will change. That's the best evidence we have right
Yes.
now, too.
Yep.
So just knowing that, and that's another reason to stay on top of the regs. That shouldn't change every 5 years. We should be agile with it. As
Yes.
new science comes in, we should be able
Lean
to
forward.
pivot. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think that's one of the things we have to. We're not right now. We're not at war. We're not deploying. So take the time to lean forward and gather information. That's a mark of a good NCO. That's a mark of a good leader.
I would say the other thing, and I know you've touched on this, that for leadership you got to role model it, right? And so for me, it's the nutrition, and there's some evidence, especially within the NFL, that looks at like by the creatine. So we know that creatine
Yes.
is really good
Yeah.
for the brain. Over the season, that comes down. So we optimize our nutrition for our gut health and everything, our brain. If we go into that range, optimal brain performance, not performance, but health, right? Going into it, then we're going to be less susceptible to some of the injuries as well. So it's like everything that we can do. So it's that multi pronged approach. Just changing the mitigation is not going to do it, but then being aware that.
This episode is brought to you by Titan SARMs. Head on over to titansarms.com and buy a stack today. Use my code CDenny10 to get your first stack. I recommend the Lean Stack 2. Start living your best life. Titan SARMs. No junk, no bullshit, just results.
Yeah. I can take care of my brain. Yeah.
Yeah, there's things we can do within our own that we're control of
Right.
directly. Diet, nutrition are a big thing, and it does bring into the discussion being sober or being willing not to drink as much.
It's a neurotoxic, but it's so much part of our culture, right? The
Yeah,
alcohol. And that's really, really hard because somebody will say, like, I will work out 3 hours a day, I'll take all these supplements, but I'm not going to get rid of the alcohol. And I get it because, 41 years in the military, that's part of our culture. It's social. Every event has alcohol. But I'm very cognizant that with my TBI, that it is a neurotoxic. So I might choose to have a glass, right? But you weigh it, right? Because it's the risk benefit.
yeah, absolutely. And before we close out, I want to focus now back to you and your journey. What are some we talked about the importance of resilience, the importance of hope, and some what are some other things in your life that as you're continuing, because it's a journey, it's not like the final destination, you get there like, yeah, we're recovered, everything's perfect now. What are some things that you actively work on a daily basis to ensure that you're doing the best for yourself, that you're putting your best foot forward to prioritize your brain health, your resilience?
And that's the hard part because we're not wired that way, right?
Yeah,
We're
no.
used to doing everything else. And so I'm blessed that this team will say things like, our director of clinical operations, Irma, will text me and say, go home now. Can we work remote today? Can and so it's that team, right? And so,
Yeah.
like, if I didn't show my vulnerabilities, and I will tell you, when I took this position for the first 3 months, I told nobody other than my leadership knew, because I didn't want, one, I wanted to see if I could do it. Because I took it as an intern because I wasn't sure I was able to. And so I need those things to take care of me so I can continue to give, right? That the
Hmm.
purpose and meaning and serve this amazing team with it. So I exercise 30 minutes a day. I try to get something to perfuse my brain, to perfuse my brain. So all those things that help our brain, help our heart, our blood pressure, everything else. And so I do that. I do my minute meditations. I take vacations, and I encourage my team to take vacation. And when they're off, I say I'm off grid. In the background, I might be checking a little thing, but I've had leaders when I'm on in Hawaii on the beach, this is military leaders, who'll be calling, texting, emailing that they need something. And at the time I would go do it, right? Because that's who I was. But now I have to be present. And so, Denny, if I'm going on vacation with you, I don't want, and this team is so amazing. They're going to be great without me. And I am not a backseat quarterback. Whatever they did was awesome. 'Cause I wasn't, to second guess somebody who's not in the trench with you making those decisions. And so I empower the team. They do an awesome job. And when I'm off grid. And sometimes that's to go do something with somebody I love, or that might just be a day to rest, renew, and recover, because, it's a process. So I'm very intentional and purposeful about the things that nourish me in my wellness practice, because even now, more so now because of my TBI. If I don't, I bring this person that I don't want to be. I'm short tempered. It's not me. That's not me. And so I don't want to bring that person ever. I want to bring my best version. And I can't do that if I don't do my wellness practices.
Yeah. It seems counterintuitive. I do it. I'm not the best at it, especially when, you're trying to, you have big goals, big dreams and deadlines and due dates. But really and truly, the absolute best way to live your life and to meet your goals, meet your mission, and put the best product forward in whatever work you're in, is to prioritize your health and yourself. It really is. I'm saying it because I need to hear it, because I need to do it more. Staying up till 2 a.m., 4 a.m. isn't going to help in the
Anybody.
long term. It's not. It's not. Regardless of whatever you're doing, aside for the guys and gals, if you're still serving, if you're in the front lines, if you're in the fight, like, okay, mission, I get it. Everybody else, bring it in.
Yeah.
Take a
And
knee.
even,
Listen to this.
yeah. And even that, as a leader, there's going to be days like we had the VA Secretary Collins here. So we had Governor Jack Bergman here. So we have some ops tempo that, you're doing this mission, but then you also doing, so there's a little churn, right?
Yeah.
But the days that you don't, go home. Go home early. Let's do that. Let's go have a picnic. It's those things, because some days your ops tempo are here, and sometimes, so you got to be able to take care of your people, right?
Yes.
And I'm always been people focused, because you take care of your people, the mission takes care of itself. And anything we invest in our people is
Yeah.
come back a hundredfold.
Yeah. You have to. You have to be able to pour into yourself and take a knee when you need it. Like, life is not in front of your computer. It's not at work. It's with your family. And that's what you got to prioritize. If you can't prioritize yourself and your family, then you got to look yourself in the mirror and realize what's really important.
Well, and it's hard having that vulnerability and asking for help. And so that's
Yes.
two really of the gifts that I got from my head injury, because I wouldn't ask for help, right? I could do it myself, right? Or, everybody else is busy enough. I don't want to delegate more. Now I have to ask for help and then give myself grace when I can't,
Hmm.
it's not where I want it to be, because I think that's real important. So, and I'm not going to be vulnerable. Well, now I am. I'm kind of vulnerable with everybody now. Woo!
It's a strength. It's a
I know, there you go.
strength.
But before, and I'm talking to your audience, you have to have your community, whether that's 3 or 5 or even one person that you can be, no mask, vulnerable, honest with. I'm struggling well today, or I'm struggling poorly. And how can I help? So you have to have that. When you look at anything in resiliency, that community is so, so important. So you don't have to show your chink in the armor to everybody in the world, but there's people you just got to be real with to really to have that resiliency. And if you can't, you need to have that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, before I let you go, Kathleen, how can we get in touch? How can we're somebody that's struggling, needs help, how can they get in contact with you in Marcus Brain Institute?
Awesome. So the Marcus Institute for Brain Health, we have the website. So if you just look that up, we're also part of the Avalon Action Alliance, and one of our team members does the first intake with everybody throughout the whole system. And so Avalon Action Alliance you can go there too. They also have a beautiful post-traumatic growth program, 1 week program that really is beautiful. I went to that myself. They also have Warriors Heart, which is drug and alcohol. So one of our sister organizations. And I found that if people go to the post traumatic growth, they bring down some of their vulnerabilities, they open up for trust, and they even get a better experience here because they're ready. They're ready to do the work. And then LinkedIn. We publish a lot of our stories, our research on LinkedIn, so you can really see what we're doing. So follow us on LinkedIn. We'd love to have you and reach out for collaboration because we're better together.
Heck yeah, I love that. Yes, please, guys, do me a favor. Head on over to the episode description. Look at all those links. They're wonderful. I put them in there just for you. Go ahead and click them. Connect with Kathleen on LinkedIn. Follow her. And please do me a favor. When you're done listening to this episode, send it to a friend, send it to a family member that you know is probably most likely struggling with this issue. Because if you've served in the military through the GWAT, you need to understand that it is the signature injury of our combat veterans. It is, and it's not just combat, right? It's training exposure too that matters. So please share this with your friends, share it online. If you go up, follow us on Instagram, share the reels to somebody because you know it is something. It takes a lot for our guys and gals to take it down that armor and be willing to say, I need help. And I've realized the more we talk about it, the more we share it in reels, the more we share it in podcast episodes, it does get to somebody who needs it. So please, if you're struggling with this, understand that this is something that will dissipate if you're willing to get help. You don't have to live with this forever. The resources and the help is out there. Please be willing to reach out. If you need any connections, reach out to me. I'll put my email in the episode description. Find me on Instagram, find me on LinkedIn, Deny Caballero or Security Halt Podcast, whichever platform you want to reach me. I'm available. I will connect you to somebody. And please know that you are worth getting help. You're worth healing. And we need you in the fight. We need every veteran. So don't wait. Don't hesitate. Get help today. Kathleen, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for what you're doing. But most importantly, thank you for your vulnerability and your service to our nation and our veterans and continued service. You're part of our warrior tribe that continues to lead from the front. And I am so grateful and honored to have you here today. And I cannot wait to meet you in person. And hopefully we can collaborate again in another episode.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jenny. This has been an awesome coffee with a friend.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you all next time. Till then, take care. Security Halt Podcast is proudly sponsored by Titans Arms. Head to the episode description and check out Titans Arms today.